Hi guys, it's your girl Katie coming at you with another recipe. So today we're gonna be making bean stew with fried plantain. Stay tuned and let me show y'all how I came about this. So to begin with, I washed my meat. I had to rinse and get all fatty stuff out of it neatly and gently. I went ahead to also rinse my beans, which had already soaked in water to get any dirt out of it. I transferred it in my saucepan, which had water that was already boiling to cook. I have with me here onion, ginger, garlic, and aniseed. These are the ingredients I'm going to be using to steam my meat. So I just go right ahead and blend them. With me here is my meat that I'm going to use for my stew. So I put it in the saucepan and I added my blended vegetables to steam it. Leave it on fire and allow it to cook. Went back to check on it and I added my Remy Gold Spice seasoning to it. A bit of salt to taste. And I gave it a quick stir and left it to cook for additional 15 minutes. At this point, you can tell that my meat is cooked and it has absorbed all the juices. So I just went ahead and transferred it in the colander and was prepping it to be fried. At this point, y'all can tell that my beans had been cooked and it was soft. So this was the time to get it off fire and go right into making our stew. Now I have my chopped onions and some habanero pepper, or what we call it in our local language, papuchito. That's what I'm going to be using for my stew. Also, I have some fresh large tomatoes that I'm also going to blend and as well add it to my stew. So let's get right into it. I have with me here my saucepan that I added my palm oil to it and allowed it to heat up a bit. Now I'm adding my salted fish, what we call momani. I stirred it and allowed it to melt. This is star of the show. It gives it an aroma. I went right ahead and added my sliced onions and gave it a quick stir. Here I'm adding the blended up vegetables that I'm using for my stew. That's the onion and the habanero pepper. I went ahead to stir it and allowed it to simmer for about 5 to 10 minutes. Without wasting much time, I also added my blended tomatoes, gave it a stir, and allowed it to cook. Now I went ahead to fry my meat, which I had already cooked. At this point, I went straight into deboning my smoked salmon, that is taking out the bones and the skin out of it, and also breaking it into my desired shape. Now Our meat is golden brown, exactly how I want it to be. So I just went ahead and transferred it into a colander. Once our tomatoes had been cooked, I went ahead and added my Onga cube, my Onga onion, ginger, garlic spice, and my Onga stew spices as well. Not forgetting our nutmeg powder. I stirred everything together and allowed it to cook for about additional 5 minutes. I added my stock that I got from my meat. I added my fried meat, gave it a quick stir, and allowed it to absorb all the juices from my stew. I added my Enapa macrel to it, which is also gonna give it an additional taste.
And I am amazed at how he loved us. So I sing.
And I also added my smoked salmon to it. Stirred everything together and allowed it to simmer for about 5 more minutes. There's the point where we're adding our beans to it, and then you can tell that our stew is almost ready. I added a bit more salt to it because the salt in my stew was a little bit too small for me, but that is optional. I gave it a quick stir and also allowed it to cook for an additional 5 minutes. I added an additional palm oil to it because my stew was looking a bit too dry for me, but you don't need to do that if you don't want to. You can tell that our stew is ready, so we're gonna put it on a low heat and go ahead and start digging into frying our plantain. Over here I have some clean water and I added a bit of salt to it just for an additional taste. You don't need to add salt if you don't want it. I went ahead and sliced my plantain into my salted water.
So I give my life to the man who died on the cross for me. And I give my days to the Lord.
I placed my saucepan on fire and added a bit of oil that I'm gonna use in frying my plantain. I then went straight ahead to add my sliced plantain to the oil on fire. Now my plantain is ready, looking golden brown, exactly the way I want it. I just went ahead and transferred it into a colander to drain all the oil out of it.
How he loved us. So I sing.
This is definitely my favorite part, the dishing and serving to eat. So y'all can tell how beautiful my plantain and beans came out. I hope y'all gonna try this process and let me know how it came. Let me know in the comment section And until we meet again, I love you. God be with you. Peace. Mwah.